Let's talk about something that I, as a person, normally don't talk about, like my marriage. How come I'm no longer married? How come I am back home, no longer living in Europe? How come I came back by myself without my two beautiful kids? How come things are the way they are right now? Okay. So, those who doesn't know me, my name is Tandi. I'm South African. I met my husband while I was working in Cape Town. At the time I was 30 years old. I'm now 41. 2 years after we got married. The same year that I got married, within 3 months, I fell pregnant. Got the first child, who's now 8. The second child is now 6 years old. They both are with their father, and now living back home in my hometown where I was raised. I'm making this video so that I can just clarify myself, also putting things into perspective. So I just understood that it's one thing to think about things, it's one thing to heal things, it's another thing to see things as they are. So going into this personal state of seeing, because I always tend to see things from a spiritual point of view, which is okay. But also I'm a human being, so I'm going to hold space for this part. So in my marriage, I don't want to lie, I'm a person who has been happy to be. That's one thing about me. I'm a person who's happy to live, okay, to be around and to be a person. I love life and I love all that comes with life. I've never foreseen myself divorcing. Never. I guess that's most of us we do. Okay. But I must say, towards the divorcing processes, I think 2 years before, I felt the need. I felt something that I have to go away, that I have to go away. I didn't know what was going on. I did spoke about it to him, Mind you, before, I didn't have any issues to say that much. I know that there was always something in me that wanted to create something, which I felt like I dealt with that thing. In marriage, it showed up as wanting to have control in certain things in certain ways. Like, for example, I wanted my husband to be in a certain way in some ways. I wanted, like, him to not shout to kids, when he speaks, that he doesn't have to express himself so violently, like, very heavy. I just couldn't stand that. That's one thing. I just couldn't stand him. And I remember like I don't want a husband like this. I remember saying that one point. It's like, I don't want to raise my kids in such an environment where a father shouts to his kids. My kids has to live in that. And without getting too much further on in that, being an issue, I believe that was the first, in the beginning, that I started to talk, to stand up. Because before, prior that, I used to kind of like brush it away and not really say anything to him. And he would just, whenever he's frustrated by something, he will lash out, and I'll just leave it, leave it, take it in and not say anything. But that was the first time that I said something to him, like, I even suggested if he wanted to see a psychotherapist about that. And I remember him saying no, he doesn't want. Maybe I'm the one who needs the psychotherapist. Anyway. But one thing that I've learned from that moment, that day, something was revealed to me. The need to have control of the external world. I remember writing something about it, because I write about feelings and sentiments and stuff. I remember writing something like, there's no peace in the world where your peace is found in in a need of having control of others. So it was kind of like revealed to me that at that time I was actually the one who was suffering with something, my distorted place in a way that, yes, it's normal to be a parent and want to protect your kids from your spouse, on their behavior. Then I realized that I am trying to find I'm trying to actually have control over life circumstances without understanding the reason behind it. And I felt like I was initiated to understand the reason behind why my husband was like that. Why was I reacting the way I was reacting to his behavior? So that was the first time I got initiated to meditating, to be honest. I remember it was 2019. I had to sit down out of a blue, hold space. And it is through this, holding space for my own, instead of lashing it out, instead of projecting my anger on him, I was somehow summoned to go in, to hold space and not to suppress them. Like I don't want to talk about this. No, I want to see. It felt like now I was actually initiated to a place of seeing, of not hiding, but of seeing the reason why I feel the way I feel, why things triggers me the way, why my husband's shouting is a problem. I'm not saying it should not be a problem or not, but based on what that I'm seeing him as a wrong person in that. Do I understand the root cause of his behavior? Do I understand the root cause of my own behavior, of my own need to protect the children, of my own need? Do I understand where I'm coming from? That part needed to be clarified. So here I was. And through this meditation of sitting and holding space and of being, I realized that I had a lot of anxiety, and these kind of behaviors were the one that triggers me most. When people are shouting, when people were angry, when people were lying, when people were, these things triggered me. And then it went on further down, where were they coming from? And then I was led down to my past experience, my family, where I was raised, how was the situation. And I realized that was something I never liked. What my husband was actually, showing, by his behavior is exactly the same behavior I never liked as a child. That's what I was against as a child. People shouting, people being angry, people belittling kids, manipulating kids' energies, and thinking that kids don't have their own brain. People cannot see, and think that they have power over kids. This used to irritate me the hell out of, as a child. So that was actually mirroring that pain, that wound that I had as a child. And it was actually being triggered by my husband's way, and I did not know what was happening, what a belief system were actually active in my mind, the narratives, what was actually, I had no idea how to read my own energy. I had no idea that, your trauma actually has the power over your mind. It actually influences how you see things. If you do not understand, what has wounded you, what has hurt you, that if you were hurt, I didn't even understand that I was hurt. I thought I was just a normal, perfect person. I didn't know that people were hurt. I didn't even have that language that some people are having mental issues. I had no idea. I thought if you have mental issues, then you are in a psychiatrist, you are in the clinical hospital where you are kept there, and then they give you medicine, and that's it, because you just cannot function in the world. That was my kind of idea when it comes to mental sickness. So there I was. I kind of it was revealed to me that, you were actually having a pain that you had as a child, and now in this environment, it is triggered. And now I needed to understand how I was going to go about it, But I kept on sitting, I kept on practicing. And I feel like the sitting and holding space kind of created the big gap between me and my husband. I think what kept things on fire was me entertaining the shadows, was me fueling the energy of insecurities, of wanting to have control, of wanting of seeing him as an enemy, seeing him as a bad person because he was actually behaving in a different way that I was not pleased with. So I kind of like the more I entertained that way of seeing the mindset, the patterns, the more I created something that kept us, close. But the more I was sitting now and not entertaining those patterns and keeping more quiet and more reserve, and then speak whenever I needed to speak, because that's one thing I learned. I learned a lot about communicating yourself honestly without indulging into those patterns of wanting to be right and the other person wrong, or wanting things to go in a certain way, but simply letting go. This is actually where it all begins. And so instead of entertaining all this sense of being insecure, and I just kind of like went on a carefree kind of a state of mind where I would just simply hold back. And the more I was not entertaining, the more I was learning a lot about myself. The more I was learning a lot about him from afar. He was staying with me. We were staying together. We would talk whenever things talking. But I could see that there was no more fire, this connection that keeps the relationship or keeps us close. Because now it felt like me being in my quiet, observant place, it worked perfectly. Because if I had to speak with him, then things would just go like escalate. He doesn't want to listen. If we speak, if he's already offended, he feels defensive. I feel defensive. I feel like, he needs. So again, we go back to the same, circle of blaming and pointing fingers and name calling and shaming and guilt tripping each other. It went on, and basically that's basically our foundation of a relationship. So with this meditation, I was learning also the ways of unconditional love, loving unconditionally. So me being silent, me holding space, me being present, me acknowledging my feelings, holding space for what I was feeling, seeing my narratives, thoughts, and being present and all that stuff was actually unconditional love. I was initiated to the self-love journey, or loving myself holistically in the midst of everything. So now I was no longer trying to save the relationship. I was no longer trying to please. I was trying to make it up or create a scene so that, I can be loved. And that's what I did as a child. And that's what I did in most relationships. To be honest, that's what I did in most relationships. I just always consider, put myself in other people's shoes and trying to make them happy instead of thinking about me. Hence, I was unhappy. Because that unhappiness is the same thing that's what was happening as a child. As a child, I was unhappy how other people were behaving. I was unhappy why they were doing things the way they did, especially when it comes to me. Like, I just didn't understand it. Do you understand? So it felt like now, as an adult, I was given an opportunity to heal the wound, but it came with the marriage. It came with this, situation that I have to deal with my husband, and he was actually that mirror of my wounds that needed to be healed. So fast forward, I lived. I mean, we were okay. Things were okay, but the more I was just focused on the healing, and the healing led me to this meditation now. The more I was actually drifting away from the whole mushy thing of love and an idea of holding an idea of creating this idea of a family, of a relationship, of marriage. Because now in that witnessing, you get to realize that you are not just the ego. You are also more than an ego. You also the higher self. You are your higher self in a human form. So when you realize that And then with meditation, it teaches you more to let go, not to attach. So everything that comes into the surface, the idea, the thought, the feeling is released, right? So if you think about kids, everything must be released, everything, in order to get to the real cause of things, to the real truth of things. You are not there to take sides. You're not there sitting there, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hold this, no, everything that comes into your head, feeling, a thought, an emotion, whatever, a person, has to be released. Do you understand? So it puts you in a position of a clear state of mind where your mind is not distorted by any outside input, imposed information, cultural, that is based on cultural ways of thinking, society's standards, or religion. Your mind comes to the state of purity, of its own natural state of being, okay? And when it's there, you are not having sides. You are not taking sides. You are neither for nor against anything. And this is where things tend to fall apart, because things in prior this state of seeing were created by that need to have control. Now you let go of the need to have control, the need to act out of insecurity, the need to create a scene so that you belong, you are loved. You don't even care. It's not like I don't care. No, there's no such thing. The care comes with the ego. So now the ego is being let go, is released. Everything falls away because there's nothing to hook on. There's nothing to hold on, to attach to the sense of who you are. Because the sense of your ego stemmed from that I see myself as this, I am a mother, I am a sister, I'm a brother, I'm a colleague, I'm a this, I'm a this. Now here you are nothing. You are a witnesser, you are an observer, you are a seer. So fast forward, then it came to this state, now this 2019, that's when it all begins. Now 2022 December, I felt that thing, the knock that I have to go. Like there wasn't much to hang on to the relationship. I was just in at a different state. Like I felt the need to go. And I remember my husband saying, if you go, then I'll keep the kids. And I was like, okay, but then what? But I was still at war with myself, with my part of my ego that wanted to stay because of this whole thing of society. I was wrestling with that idea because I didn't really grasp it at that time. And I was like, no. And then we talked again. It was December, first time, 22. He had Christmas with his family, with the kids, and I had Christmas by myself. So I stayed like a week alone, 2 weeks. And then he came back, and then I went there. Then we talked, and like, okay, let's start over again. We tried. Fast forward a month and a half. I was like, no. And I felt it. It's like, no, I had to let go. It's not real. It's not what I resonate with now. So I told him, like, I feel like this. But it came as like cross, because for him initially it was not like, he didn't really accept it, There was like a way, let's work it out. Let's see, let's see. Then one day I came up with this idea that I want to do spiritual teacher. I'm accepting because I can see now who I am beside this being mom. I have a lot of knowledge when it comes to spirituality. I have understanding, and I feel resonating to be part of that community of spiritualism and stuff like that, which bring light and bring understanding about human consciousness, our patterns and stuff like that. I felt so much passion, fired up, like, because now, one, it changed my life. I used to suffer a lot and struggle with mental things and stuff, emotion I didn't know. And then with the journey of going through that 6 years of holding space, I got my powers back. I understand what was happening in myself, the patterns, and how I was using the old ways. Also understood where I was coming from, how the traumatic event actually was influencing my ways. And that also my husband is actually perfectly fine as it is. My need to control it comes from a place of hurt, because I feel hurt when he does that, because that's what I used to feel as a child. So I needed to understand why my family members were doing that. And when I understood the root cause of their mindset and how they wired, then I also understood why my husband was like that. And that's when I realized he's under the shadows energies. He's influenced by shadows, and also those shadows trigger my own shadows. So every time he does that, I feel triggered. So I needed somehow to learn how to deal with my own shadows. Yes, if I like that. So the spirituality was more about initiating to deal with my own shadows. And then when I said this, in front of my kids, and he was like, "No, there's no way. If you become spiritual, then that's the end of the marriage." And I was somehow very disappointed, heartbroken, because for me personally, I was thinking, we got married and we said our vows, and till until death do us apart. And I mean, I've been there for you in many things, and I feel like I'd never really, ask. That's what I felt. But I was like, this is very important to me. Could you support? But he was like, no. Spirituality, no. And I had to somehow come to terms with that being, rejected, and him refusing it and not wanting, because somehow for me that was the only way. There was no other way. I didn't see any other way without having that connection with spirituality. I felt like I had to go deeper on that thing. And so he said no. And then I remember reflecting on this, and then I somehow realized it was revealed to me, like, you have done this work, it has placed you here. This person, you don't know what he's dealing with, and you understand that there are shadows. So why would you push someone who is led by shadows? Or why would you push someone who doesn't see things this way to force them to receive you, to accept you, to love you, when you can clearly see, the situation as it is? So when I saw that, and I was worried, with the kids, how is it going to be? And then, everything was clarified. Like, things are perfect as they are. You just accept the new journey, and follow. So I was like, okay, I accept it. And it was a challenge. It took me 2 years to finally come to that decision to file for divorce. And when I did, I'm telling you, I felt a huge relief in me, like a huge relief in any way, mentally, emotionally. All of a sudden, it's like I elevated by saying that. It's like spiritually, I was like elevated to a different level of seeing that has more clarity now, and my energy was somehow grounded into that state of being present and on understanding things as they are. Whereas before I made that decision, I was somehow doubty, not really sure. I've tasted the water. I want to be part of that world where I'm learning about consciousness, human consciousness, where I'm learning about our ways of being, learning about clarity, how to create a better life, of being in a state of being connected to life as a whole, where we acknowledge ourselves, where we see our own strengths and weaknesses, where we want to take care of our well-beings and stuff like that. That's, I've tested the water and I love it, and I'm connected to that. I'm no longer connected to the world of just living and then not having a drive, or a drive that stems from consciousness. I'm just now bought into that wagon of consciousness, and I want. So prior, it was like not really, but once I said it, once I spoke to my husband, I told him, listen, we have to be true. It's no longer the same. I've loved you, you've loved me, we've done everything we did together. We had our dream, and kids, marriage, everything. It feels like this is it right now. It's best that we go on our separate ways. You take the kids for now, because of course I don't have any means. You have some cash, you have work, you have cars and stuff like that, and I'm in a foreign country. I need to learn the language better, and I need to be on my feet and be independent. So we kind of like get it from there. That was before anger step in. Anger, I'll talk about it more. And then He was like, okay, we do that. And he was like, okay. He looked in my eyes. He said, yeah, okay. Then he said one day, I think that's what I wanted too, but I just didn't know how to say it. So he was feeling it. I was not just me. He was feeling the pinch, but he was holding on because maybe again, his beliefs about marriage and stuff, at which I've already overcome on my side by then. Because I've already understood that that's the whole thing of living for other people perspective. You're not living for yourself. Yes, people can wish so much, but in the end, you create your own life experience based on what you truly believe for yourself. So I saw him. I was able now to see what sort of belief system he was entertaining, how shadows were actually active, so much active in his life, and he was not even aware of them. So once that was revealed to me, that's when I feel like it was like a way out, like fully leave. And we talk to our kids, we explain everything, we make the question out, what was happening. For me, I'm more about speaking the truth. I'm about being honest and vulnerable in front of my kids, so that they, at least if they don't have to experience in the world, they did get it from the mother side, how to hold space for myself and be true to myself. My intentions was to just have that kind of a connection with my kids, where I'm coming from a heart. I'm not trying to create a scene. I'm not trying to make something in a certain way. I'm just want to be myself. So I did that. And I remember saying, okay, I want to go, because I worked for 2 months, I think 1 month or so, 2 months. And then I was like, I need to go away. I felt like I have to go to South Africa. I came back home. I stayed here for 5 to 6 months. That was the first year, 2023. And he was with the kids. I explained to my kids, so my kids knew that I was going away. And then I went back again, and so that I can, learn to get work and stuff, so I can be close with the kids. And when I went back, he changed place. And I mean, he was changing the city, was going to another city. He found work somewhere else where I didn't feel comfortable to go to. And I said, but we decided we're going to stay because I'm comfortable. And if you leave, I'm going to stay here because this is the place. But then to live in there, you needed to have your own work that you have, like that was going to pay the rent. And my husband was not the person who was going to pay my rent, of course. We agreed on that. I took about 3,500 euros the year prior that, and that's what the money I used within those 6 months I was living in Cape Town and also here. So going back there, I didn't really have so much finance, but then I got to work, and then I stayed with him. I stayed with him when he was there in Cagliari before he decided. So I went there in March, and then I moved out within 2 weeks or a week. I got there. I moved to a next door lady. I stayed in their place maybe for 1-2 months, and then I find work, and then work required me, which was around July, it required me to move out to stay in that outside the city. So I stayed there for 2 months. That was around July, August, the season time. Then after season time, July, September, that's when he was moving. He decided he was going away out of the blue. He didn't plan it. He told me that he's going away, find work, blah, blah, blah. And I was somehow shocked because I came back so that I can find my feet and find something around there so I can be close. That was the decision we made. But now he changed the whole thing. He's moving. And I was like, okay, you go there. I'll come and visit sometimes. And I find my way. So when I finished that season job for 2 months, I always wanted to travel. And I travel around Europe. I went out to use the money for that. I came back and I went to visit my kids where he was. With the kids, I stayed there. Within a week, I found another job for another 2 months because the season is still open for them. And then after 2 months, which is now this year, it ended in January 2025, right? And then That's where he was like, I don't want you in my house. And okay, I was like, okay, he offered me he's gonna pay for 3 months. I must find a place, but it was hard to find a place because agencies wanted someone who's working and who was someone who's going to pay for that. And so because I didn't have work now, and there was no way, things were just not aligning. Okay, so I saw it fit for me, instead of doing this, and I mean, this guy is not happy me staying here and I cannot find a place. I mean, I don't even have people and stuff here. I have to go home. I don't have to sit here and stress all the time. Felt like it was like a stress. You have to think about a place all the time, because that's the kind of find yourself, find yourself, find yourself, find yourself, find yourself. He was just putting that pressure, like you need to find a job, you need to be independent, you need to all the time. And it was like, for me, okay, I just need to go in a place where I can husa and take it in now, this whole thing, and then really, start over again and see, So I was like, okay, I'm going home because there's nothing I can do now. I told my kids I'm going home, and I'll see when mommy is able to finance herself, she'll come and visit, Otherwise, you guys stay with your father, mommy goes back home and then find her own way to get back in her own feet. So that's why I'm here. Divorce, we left them like that. We didn't really fully divorce because it was all like, there was a pressure coming on. He was really not comfortable. I don't know what was pressuring him. And I told him, I said, if I suggest one thing, work with your own shadows. Work with your, that's what I said, because I saw how they work with my inner shadows and child work, and doing that, healing my past experience has helped me to be more grounded to myself and not reacting to things and not fighting things, because now I was, no longer at war with him. I saw him and I understood him. I understood where he was coming from. I could just see the shadow that coming from his family side, how they were influencing him, how he was not able to see them, and how I was not the one to save him. Also, I had to let go of the need to save him. I needed to let him find his way, find his own way by himself without me supporting or holding space and enabling him to be the same over and over. So I needed to let go of that. And I was letting go. I was like, I'm addicted. I let go of everything. Oh, yeah. So I kind of like let go of that need to have control. And I was living through these 2 years, since 2022, 23, with all these shift and changes and stuff like that. I was more emphasized to be grounded into the now and witnessing, let go, recognize the edges from within me, the need to have control, the need to act out of being insecure, out of being ashamed. And he was being used, I'm telling you, because he was like mirroring me. He was mirroring all the things that used to trigger me as a child. He was acting them out. So I was triggered, but now I was also given the opportunity to shift my mindset into what I want to create, instead of reacting under those pressure that comes from those triggers, right? So I was like, every time, and I saw it as an opportunity. Every time he act out and I'll actually pull down, I'll now just, surrender, hold space, identify the patterns, identify the needs, I identify things, acknowledge them, accept them, embrace them, be with them, feel the feelings, the challenges, my nervous system being rattled up. I had to feel it over and over. So he was really somehow that mirror, is as much it was hurting because it was a difficult thing to do, but it was also good exercise for me, a platform where I had to really learn how to apply this. It's one thing to know something, it's one thing to be able to apply it. So I was given a gift through that experience so that I can apply it over and over until I learned to master that. Hence I could now see him for who he is and the energies that are behind his behavior. I was able now to read his energy. I was able to read my energy, my kids' energy, people's energy. I was just in a different state. And it was empowering me to be the better version that I always wanted to experience of having a clear state of mind, a sound mind, being present, and being aware of my own triggers, my own weaknesses, and my own strengths, and being able to create my life experiences with through my strengths, using my strength, but in a very present way, without trying to fight or push or resist things, but seeing things as they are. That's what I was being taught throughout this journey. So I came back home already now like a master of something. I master that. I master my mind. I master my own, chaotic mindset and how it actually shows up in my life. How I used to end it. The patterns I learned how to master them. I got back here and now I didn't have so much. Anyway, I got back home. I haven't been here since 19 years. I left here when I was 22 years old, almost 20 years. But I used to come like visit, 2 weeks, a week, or 3 days, something like that. I never stayed more than like 2 weeks or less than a week to say. Okay, 10 days or 7 days. That's basically the maximum. So now, from the very first time, I'm back to live, to stay, to be. Little did I know that I was actually coming to close that circle of that wound that I got as a child that actually wounded me from seeing life from what is. And I had to deal. Luckily enough, I still have my sisters, and the one that was acting as a mom that actually initiated me into this wound, gave me the wound. It was passed on her, she passed it on me, and I had to look, I had to recognize those wounds and who came with them. I understood this. She's the one. I understood everything. Everything was just being revealed to me now. Everything was just, laid out. And that was the more I found myself grounding. And now for the first time being at home, being at peace and being at home with myself. I've always been at home, but I never really feel at home. But now I feel at home. I felt at home even before. Back in Italy, I felt at home with myself, right? But it's my first time to be at home and feel at home inside me, because now I'm living here. I got to relive those experiences through my sisters, how they still behave in the same way. They still, see things in their own way. But I came with this different energy. I'm no longer the same. I'm different, and I'm also burping like my mom. I have a different approach. I see things different. I think totally different ways, and I'm like a shock, and I speak for myself now. I'm no longer quiet, observant. I don't just keep things in. I speak when I need to speak. I clarify myself. And it came as a shock into their system because they already have an image of who I am and how I tend to approach things. How, for instance, I people please. I always like do things for them. I wanted them to be happy. I used to spend money on them, do these things, buy things for them, make them happy, make sure what they needs they have, clean the house for them, whatever they need, I am there. And now I'm the opposite, and that's what happened also in my marriage in the last year. I was guided not to do things that used to put me in a position where I'm doing things for just creating a peace. So because I know my husband liked me cleaning the house and make sure the house is clean. That's what they will say. The wife has to do that, right? I don't believe that in now, like that I have to do that. It's like we can hire someone. I can go to work. That's what my argument was that let's hire someone, because I honestly never liked cleaning. I told him from the beginning. I said I never liked cleaning. It's not like I don't really like cleaning, but I know I had issues with cleaning, and that issues were coming from back home, how I was raised and how cleaning was actually introduced to me. There was a lot of punishment. There's a lot of shouting. There's a lot of fear-based controlling ways, tactics that were used so that you do things, manipulated. And I didn't like that. I didn't like it. And I feel like in our relationship, he was perfect so that I can see where this was coming from, because he was also like that. Like, if you don't do this, then what's the use of you? Like, you are useless if you can't do this. If you're as a wife, you're not cleaning, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. And I felt like it mirrors back home, like no one really cares to ask, what is it that you want? How do you see the world? What do you think is good? Like, no one was having that ability to be open-minded, to listen and be curious. Where do you come from, and how do you see the world, and what do you think is, necessary, and how things are supposed to be done? And that's one thing I didn't have as a child. And I remember now being in a marriage that also was emotionally unavailable, not talking about such things, and not even being available for doing that. Then it kind of like triggered the same wound. So fast forward, I am there, and I came back here, and I had to face all of these things. I have to deal with all of them. I have to understand the pain that I've created, how I created the pain, why I was in pain, how it came about. And it came back now saying, I'm not a victim of life, I actually came here to kind of like close the chapter, yes, that circle, but also the truth that I've discovered already. One, I already knew that I'm not a victim. Two, I already knew that I create my life experience. And if I create my life experience, other people also have the power to create. It's either they create it unconsciously or consciously. Whereas for me, I want to create it consciously. So this was clear. And I said to my husband, and I even made it clear, I said, you being angry with the kids is not the kids' fault. It's you. You angry, you choose to be angry based on what you tell your mind. Do you understand? So I said the kids, they might mirror their state of mind you are coming from, but they are not the fault. So my kids knew that. They knew that they are not the one. If their father is not happy, it's not their fault. It's the father's way of seeing and depending. And I explained them. I taught my older daughter, I taught them about patterns and behaviors that we learn around people, and that actually at the later stage tend to influence our mind, and then we think that's the way, hence we act and behave in the way we behave in relationships with other people. So your father, the way he behaves, because my kids didn't understand why I was nice and why I was calm, why the father was not, they used as why father is not calm, why he doesn't have this. So I had to teach them that in the end, your background, your parenting, your parents, caregiver can give you this, but in the end, you the one who have the responsibility to change it if it doesn't create a better life or better world for you. So for me, yes, I was raised in a similar background like him. We both hold, similar background, where we were raised both under the fear, the need to control. Vast. I saw it, I experienced it in his family, big, like crazy big. But it was reflecting the pain that I have already had from my background. So somehow, hence I'm saying my marriage was like a blessing in disguise, because I had to learn a lot about myself and heal a lot about my wounds that used to hinder me from experiencing life the way I want to experience it, that I believe and I know to be true to me. And it is through that marriage that I had to learn, that I create my life. I'm not a victim of life circumstance. I have the free will to choose how I want to channel my energy under any given state. I don't have to blame people. I don't have to be at war with people. I don't have to be at war with myself. I don't have to do anything kind of stuff like that to have control of other people's behavior. I just have to understand the laws that actually makes creation to be the way it is. I have to understand how come things come to be. And that's one thing I've learned from that marriage. It has actually helped me to get to that. All the stuff that happened there. Hence, I don't feel like he's at fault or I'm at fault. He's wrong, I am wrong. I'm right, he's wrong, or he's right, I'm wrong. I don't feel that. I'm not inclined to that sort of patterns or ways of saying more. And I feel like we are both two people who attracted each other because we both have some similar things that we needed to work in. And I did my part, he did his part, and somehow our part, different ways of seeing, has brought us into this position where we are required to separate, and here I am now back home, starting over, living life again. Not starting over, continuing back, because there's no starting over. Continue with life, learning more and discovering more about life and myself, What do I know about the marriage? I don't even know what will happen. I don't know how things will turn out. I'm not in a place of looking to go back on. Initially, there was a part of me when I wanted to go and be close with the kids, but I kind of like surrendered that to God, like to the universe, because knowing that, you know, everything works together for the highest good, who am I to really force things out? So I surrendered. I'm like, okay, I let things be, whatever the case may be. If the feeling comes, I will act on it. You know, whatever that comes, touch my heart, I'll move. But for now, I'm just gonna be here and live as life is unfolding here now in this present moment. So that's my story, basically. That's my story.